Hi, this is Moo. In my mind, the juice that you use, especially the first juice that you use, is the most important factor in determining whether or not you will like vaping enough to quit smoking with it. If your liquid is revolting, you'll just toss the whole idea right away. If it's not great, but it delivers nicotine, you might stick with it, but you won't like it too much, and you may go back to smoking. If you like the taste of it, your chances of pulling this off are much, much greater, and if you're lucky, you might just drop combustibles immediately without a second thought. If you're using a disposable cigarette like I advised against in the previous video, well, you're kind of stuck with the flavor that's in there. You can try some other kinds of disposables, but you won't be able to sample one at your local smoke shop. If you're using a disposable pre-filled cartomizer system, you might be lucky and maybe you can buy some different cartos individually to test. Good luck. The rest of this video assumes that you have a refillable system with a tank and you buy your juice in bottles. If you're trying to get off of cigarettes, try some tobacco flavors. The RY4 blend was one of the early successes in getting smokers to quit when it was created, but there's also 555, Desert Ship. There's a bunch of Marlboro clones that taste to me like a burning tire, but maybe you might like it. You should find something that you like in there. The flavor of tobacco is something that you may find yourself missing if you jump right into vaping weird fruit concoctions, and as a result you may be jonesing for a cigarette. Just find a tobacco that you like. Pretty soon you're going to want multiple flavors, if not immediately. Even if you have a favorite, what people will call an all-day vape or an ADV, you may love it, but you can get bored with it sometimes, or you can become inured to the taste, or, especially in the first month or two, your sense of taste and what you like will change since you're not smoking anymore, and you may find that it's just not any good. For example, when I started, I got this little bottle of some rebranded Chinese liquid called Desert Ship. I'm pretty sure it was made by Feel Life and repackaged, since that's where a lot of their business comes from. It was supposed to taste like Camel cigarettes. It really didn't, but it had some nice tobacco notes with a nuttiness and a little hint of caramel that I found to be tolerable to begin with, and I grew to enjoy it the more I used it. Now, after a couple of weeks of hopping around to different kinds of flavors, I went back to it, just because I had it lying around, and I found it detestable. Maybe some of my taste buds woke up and skewed me away from that particular flavor mix, and maybe it just sucks on the claramizer I was using. Or whatever, I hated it. And this is also why you want to buy in small bottles, especially at first. You might find a flavor you love so much that you feel fine getting a giant bottle of it, but you might not have that same sense a couple weeks later as your tastes shift around. So in the first couple of months, try to stay reasonable with the size of your purchase. Where should you get your juice? Well, you can buy e-liquid in local brick-and-mortar stores, tobacco shops, and vape shops. You can buy it from online stores, or you can make your own from some simple base ingredients. Now let's take a look at all three of these very quickly. Say you want to buy at a local store. There are some really big advantages of this. You can get the juice immediately, which you will find extremely useful if you're bad at planning and you find yourself running out. It's way better to run out and buy even some mediocre juice than to pick up a pack of cigarettes. If the store that you go to is at all decent, you'll be able to try the flavor before you buy it. If you buy the liquid ready to go in a sealed bottle, chances are you won't have to steep it at all since it's been sitting around. And steeping is something that I'm going to talk about a little later. Now, on the downsides, you will most likely pay more than you would elsewhere, and you will be limited in selection. Most low-end stores like a tobacco shop carry only one supplier, and if the shop decides to change that supplier, you might lose access to your favorite juice. And even a specialty shop rarely carries more than 2 brands. You can also buy juice online, and a lot of people do this. There are a lot of online stores selling liquid. You're going to have to do some research to find one that has a decent reputation. Now, generally, you will be able to buy cheaper, both in the base price of the liquid and from various coupon codes or special offers that these guys have all the time to promote their business. You should, if the site has a decent online storefront, be able to check out reviews of the flavors, although you're probably better off checking the Electronic Cigarette Forum or Reddit for recommendations. Now, on the other hand, you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait on the shipping, which from some vendors can take forever since they barely know how to run a business. And you may also have to wait to steep your liquid if they mix fresh to order. Again, there's that word. Now, this means that from the time that you order a flavor that looks like it might be good to you to the time that you want to actually use it to fill a tank can be anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. Sometimes over a month if you're really, really patient. And this can be frustrating. You will not be able to taste test anything, obviously, that you buy online, so you're going to rely more on user reviews and guesswork, and you'll probably wind up with a fair number of bottles that you hate. So, again, it's another reason to buy small bottles at first. You just never know what you're going to get. A quick note about juice reviews and recommendations. Everyone's tastes are different. And I know people say that and some people poo-poo the idea, but it seems to be more pronounced in the world of vaping than it does in food or drinks. And this is probably partially because vaping is relatively recent as opposed to, say, eating and drinking. And as a result, we don't really have common vocabulary to describe what we mean when we say things like buttery notes, throat hit, or any of the other goofy terms that people come up with when they try and describe what a vapor tastes, smells, and vapes like. The best thing that I can recommend personally is go around to a bunch of vape shops in your area and sample as many liquids as you can. Especially if you're new, the shop owner is going to want to help you find something that you like because he wants your business. If he doesn't want your business, go ahead and give it to somebody else. Doesn't matter. Sample, sample, sample. If you're looking at reviews online from, say, a vendor who allows reviews on their liquids, see what everyone says. You're going to find reviews all over the board on the same juice. Some people will despise it. Some people will love it. If most people seem to love it, it's probably a pretty good gamble. If most people seem to hate it, it doesn't mean that you'll hate it. If the vendor offers a sampler pack, get a sampler pack. Ask the vendor if he will allow you to decide the flavors that go into that sampler pack. Since you already have an idea of what you like, you can see if those flavors are close to what you like. Now lastly, you can make your own e-juice. Now I have not done this, although I plan to very shortly. So I'm not going to comment too much on how practical or impractical it is. There are a lot of videos on it. You should check them out if you're curious. Generally speaking, you buy your base nicotine solution, your propylene glycol, your vegetable glycerin, and your flavors and your flavor additives. You mix it all up to your specifications. You steep it for however long you're planning to steep it, or at least you aerate it and mix it, and see if you like what you got. Now this requires extra upfront expenditure because you're going to have to buy your bottles of ingredients, your flavors, your glassware, syringes, everything you need in order to mix e-juice, and you do that up front. But over time, it is potentially the least expensive method of getting your liquid. The cost savings can be huge. Unfortunately, it also requires you to handle toxic nicotine concentrates, which are really bad to get on your skin. Since nicotine is absorbed through the skin, it may kill your children and pets if they get into it, so you have to be very careful with your storage, and at higher concentrations require protective gear and good ventilation. You're also probably going to wind up buying a whole lot of flavor additives to experiment with and combine into all manner of concoctions that you just hate and dump in the toilet if they're bad enough. And of course, you're mixing fresh, so you're going to have to steep everything, which means that you may have no idea if your mixture is any good at all for days or weeks. So steeping is something that you should do with most, if not all, of your juices. Now there's actually two parts of this, steeping and breathing. Steeping is just where you take the bottle and you put it in a dark place and forget about it for a long time after you've given it a good shake to try and blend the components together. Breathing is exchanging the air in the bottle or leaving the cap off for a little while to oxidize the nicotine and carry off or break down some of the most noxious of the aromatic compounds in your flavors. You generally do both. Most people just open up the cap, they exchange the air for a little bit, seal up the bottle again, shake it like a British nanny, and then they put it away in a dark place, either with the cap on or the cap off. I do it with the cap on. I don't want to oxidize all the nicotine. There's a lot of opinions on the best way to do this, how long you should do it, how long you should do it by flavor, or whether you need to do it at all, since some mixtures are usable right out of the beaker. But, in most cases, every juice will benefit from at least a few days of settling. If you buy repackaged juice in sealed containers like you would at a tobacco shop, you probably don't need to worry about this. I mean, those bottles have been on a ship across the ocean for weeks, and they took forever to get to the store by truck and train, so they're already done. If you buy higher-end liquids from a store, or you get a custom mix from a store that actually has someone making the juice in the back for you to your specifications, make sure that you know when that liquid was made, which obviously if it's a custom mix it's going to be that day. If it was a week or more before you bought it, you might not need to steep it anymore. Try a little bit out. If it's flavorless or too perfumey or just weird, go ahead, open up the bottle for a little bit, get some air in there, seal it up, shake it for a while like a British nanny, and put it away for a few days. Rinse and repeat. For fresh mixes, treat it like an online purchase of fresh liquid and just resign yourself to waiting. It's frustrating, but you will be rewarded. And lastly, a reminder about starting nicotine levels for people just getting into this. I don't recommend personally that you start at any nicotine concentration higher than around 20 milligrams per milliliter, or possibly a little bit less. Some shops, when you go in, they will recommend high nicotine levels if you are a heavy smoker. But just remember that even if you were a 3-pack-a-day smoker, each one of those cigarettes didn't magically become stronger just because you were smoking more of them. And you're also going to vape more frequently than you smoked. In most places, 16 to 18 milligrams is considered a normal smoker's level to start. I started at 18. And you can usually drop to 11 to 12 milligrams without too much of a hassle. When I switched from 18 to 12, I didn't even notice. Whatever you get, if you wind up with some of the symptoms of too much nicotine, like dizziness, or you have a headache, your pulse is pounding, or you're nauseous, and you know that you don't have a propylene glycol allergy, you're probably using too high a concentration for the amount that you're vaping. Now, conversely, if you get too low a concentration and you wind up that you have nicotine cravings, you can just vape a little more and then go back to the store when it's convenient and get a higher nicotine mix. And I would prefer that any day over a collection of other physical symptoms. Well, that's about it for this video. Just some basics on where you get your juice and what you should look for in your juice. And I will see you next time.